In the early 2000s, we experienced a prosperous era of written stories and vibrant literary forums. Before social media platforms like YouTube, TikTok, or Twitter took over the planet with video content, we had a slow-paced life with texts. Online novels flourished strongly, leaving deep impressions in our memories. And the story I'm about to tell today might help you reminisce about our youth during that time. Well, in the meeting room of Rand Publishers, they were discussing the days of the 2000s. And the current year in this meeting room is 2022. This bespectacled young man is presenting before the meeting on the topic of online novels in the era before the development of video content as we know it today. He is listing the contemporary famous works. He's just too cool for me, QQ, The Temptation of Bad Boys, If You Play Around Here, You'll Die. And he continues to mention some famous authors from that period in Korea. Among them is our main female character, this old lady, Jo Ah-han, a female writer specializing in online novels. At the age of 37, she is now the director of this publishing house. She's still unmarried. Her name is Choi Ran-ah, a fearless and beautiful CEO who intimidates her employees. The enthusiastic bespectacled guy is ending his speech with utmost excitement. Whatever its content, I'll leave that aside. After the meeting discussing the company's next plan, applause filled the room. A gentle employee asked his boss about the plan he just presented. But contrary to the joy of the employees, the stern old lady leaned on her chin with a bored expression, asking him, "Hyungu, what does our company do again?" The bewildered young man replied, "We're a publishing company, ma'am." The young boss said, "So you do know that? I thought you didn't, right?" "Yes, we're a publishing company." She continued with a smile, "We deal with literature, and this meeting is where we discuss literary content for posting on the company's YouTube channel." To the horror of the employee, Choi Ran-ah began to genuinely lose her temper, loudly scolding, not caring about spelling, using vulgar language excessively. "Can you call something literature when it doesn't describe appropriately? Every sentence is cheesy, and those empty words keep repeating too much. Are you brainless? Or did you never study literature in school? I'd rather search for roses in the trash than listen to this." Slamming her hand on the table, she crushed the draft paper in her hand, stood up, and yelled. The young employee, frightened, burst into tears. "Boss, Jo Ah-han is an eccentric writer. She's the one who came up with those empty words. She's still hot until now, a legend." Hearing this, the boss suddenly became confused, stopped her tantrum, furrowed her brows, and said, "Stop. They're all the same to me anyway, this project is a waste of my time." She immediately threw the draft paper into the trash, put her hands in her pockets, walked to the door, and turned back to instruct her employees, "Drop that idea immediately and prepare for next week's meeting." The young employee cried a river next to the trash can after the door slammed shut. He was trying to find roses in the trash, as the boss had just said. In the company's restroom, gossip and backbiting were still rampant. Two beautiful girls were admiring themselves in the mirror, applying lipstick and chatting. They were bad-mouthing the director. "Isn't our boss a bit strict? Hyungu's idea was great. What else, who reads online novels nowadays? Wasn't she bragging about her boring literature that won awards for her work?" The girl next to her sighed and said, "There are many people like that in the creative department, even some who have retired." The other girl lamented, "I've noticed our director has been very unpleasant these days. I heard she just called off her engagement." Surprised, the other exclaimed, "Really? Is that true?" "Yes, that's why she's been off lately." The trivial gossip echoed throughout the restroom, even reaching someone sitting on the toilet. Frowning, lips pressed, full of frustration, as if trying to push something out. Muttering to herself, "I've heard enough of you all." Tense and unable to relieve herself, her face wrinkled with thought about the trivial chatter. After reining in her rage, she sighed in frustration, "But they're not entirely wrong. I do get angry too often, and winning too many literature awards. However, there are some things they got wrong." She stood up gently, muttering to herself, "I'm not angry because of the broken engagement, but because, well, I am Jo Ah-han." She lunged to catch some small squeaking mice, but it was quiet, they had scurried away. Choi Ran-ah drove recklessly on her way home, she was always in such a hurry. There's no reason a 37-year-old woman should be so enraged by gossip. She pondered calmly in her car, "My life is almost dull. When I was 16, I wrote a novel about the love between Sango-chan and a normal high school girl. The protagonist was an online writer. I never thought my work would go viral like that. What possessed me to write such illogical stories back then? Well, that's a stain on my life, a past so shameful it makes me nauseous, a secret I just want to bury. Ending her journey, she stepped out of the car with 2 bags that looked like gifts. Her eyes softened, gazing up at the house in front of her, sighing. That was her home. On the dining table, her mother had prepared delicious dishes, and they ate together. Her mother asked, "It's been a while since I've seen your husband?" She lowered her head and replied, "I'm not married, so where would I get a husband?" Her mother didn't know that our marriage had been called off. And today, she came home to tell her parents about this. The excited mother asked, "You're almost 40, when are you going to decide to get married?" "Mom," she hesitated, "actually." Her stepfather calmly said, "It's all right, as long as you and your partner are okay and healthy. Lately, you haven't been sick, have you?" Choi Ran-ah replied softly, "I'm fine, stepfather." The mother was somewhat annoyed, grumbling, "Again, you still call him uncle, we've been married for 17 years. Choi Ran-ah laughed apologetically, "Oh, I'm sorry." The girl struggled to utter a word, "Dad." It still felt heavy to say it. Just then, there was a creak of the door opening. The mother quickly ran out to greet the person who had just entered, happily calling out, "Oh, Yuri's here. Son, have you eaten yet?" The boy, just returning from school, politely replied, "No, not yet." "Who's there, Mom?" "Oh, it's your sister visiting," she said kindly. Choi Ran-ah greeted the boy cheerfully. He was her half-brother, with a significant age gap and different living arrangements, so they were naturally distant. The boy bowed solemnly to his older sister, then said he would eat later, and went into his room. The mother was confused. "The boy is still quite shy, isn't he? I'm sure he'll get used to it eventually. After all, he's only in middle school. If you come here more often, maybe your younger brother will be closer to you." The stepfather said to his wife, "Hey, aren't you going to answer the phone?" While the mother was engrossed in socializing with someone, "Hi, how are you, what's up now?" Choi Ran-ah sat quietly, pondering her place in this house. She felt the pressure of returning to this home. The mother ended the call and turned to ask her husband anxiously, "Oh my, our sister is coming over, did you buy any oysters?" The husband asked bewilderedly, "Now? But don't we have guests?" His words choked Choi Ran-ah. She forced a smile of adult politeness, "Don't mind me, I'll just stay in my room." As guests, they were merely discussing her. She was just a guest to them. But even Choi Ran-ah's polite remarks made them suddenly uneasy. The confused mother said, "Oh, your room?" She led Choi Ran-ah to her old room, which was now a storage room for clothes and items. She explained that they needed more space due to Choi Ran-ah's infrequent visits. "Do you understand?" she awkwardly added, "If you want to rest, I'll rearrange things." Choi Ran-ah suppressed a sigh and forced a light smile. "I'm fine, where did you put my stuff?" "In the basement." Choi Ran-ah slowly made her way down there, step by step. She turned on the lights along the way. The room was quiet and dusty, but Choi Ran-ah's belongings were neatly stored there. She reminded herself, "I'll stay here until they leave." She sat down on the chair next to her old desk with her old computer. She looked up at the sky and sighed, "Today is truly a terrible day, I might even cry." Looking at her old computer, she consoled herself, looking back, I was happier then, wasn't I? Should I revisit some memories to pass the time while I'm here? I wonder if this old computer still works. She pressed the power button and was delighted to see it light up. The computer was still functional. But she didn't expect that this action would open a portal and pull her into another world. With a crackle, electricity surged, and her mind went dark. She dreamt in the darkness, unable to see anything. The sound of the wind suddenly swept her around, through floating characters in the vast space. Suddenly, she woke up. A strange voice called out to her, "Ahan, wake up, you still have to go to school." "Ahan? Where am I?" Choi Ran-ah woke up in a strange, small bed. The person in front of her looked quite young. She was bewildered by the image of her. "Mom? She looks like a mother, a housewife." The woman hurriedly said, "If you don't wake up soon, Hainam will use the bathroom first." In Choi Ran-ah's bewilderment, another call came, a strange man's voice calling out to the woman, "Honey, the eggs are about to burn." The wife scolded her husband and ran out, reminding Choi Ran-ah, "Quick, wash your face and have breakfast." Choi Ran-ah sat still for a while, trying to understand what was happening. Who am I, and where am I? Choi Ran-ah looked at the young parents arguing about the husband burning the eggs with sesame oil. Watching them argue so realistically, Choi Ran-ah wondered, am I time traveling to the past? With her experience in writing, she concluded that she might be. But wait, her parents in the past weren't like this. I didn't have parents like this. In fact, her parents were on the brink of divorce, constantly fighting madly. The call of the young mother snapped Choi Ran-ah back to attention. Sit down and eat quickly, you have to go to school, it's almost late, she urged. Choi Ran-ah wondered what the heck was happening. Was she really going to school, with a youthful teenage body, carrying her bag hesitantly across the schoolyard? The most reasonable hypothesis presented by Choi Ran-ah was that she was time traveling into a cheap online novel. Year 2, Grade 7, 3 days had passed in this new high school world, and she still hadn't found a way back to reality. This was a fictional world, a simulated world within her own novel. This seems to be a world created by the combination of imagination and reality in my own novel, Choi Ran-ah assured herself. And she wondered, had the entity of Choi Ran-ah left that basement yet? How was Choi Ran-ah's work going while her spirit was trapped in this virtual world? How would the company function without her guidance? And would the goldfish in the tank still be alive without being fed? She was quite puzzled by these questions about reality. Still, the question persisted, who am I, and where am I? Currently, Choi Ran-ah was becoming the main character in her own novel, Jo-ah-han, 18 years old, a sophomore in high school. And she was young and beautiful. Jo-ah-han had just transferred to a new high school for girls, famous for its ugly rural uniforms, but also for its outstanding students. And Jo-ah-han got along very well with her younger brother, who was studying at Sango. As for this character Jo-ah-han and Choi Ran-ah's understanding, she knew nothing. She just wanted to wake up and go home. What was a nearly 40-year-old woman doing with teenage romance stories? But how to return, she didn't know. While lost in contemplation like a true old lady, the sweet call of her best friend woke her up. Ah-han, what are you doing, sweetheart? This supporting character's name was Yu So-young, Jo-ah-han's only friend. The cute hazel-haired friend recounted, I went for a walk after school, and I met some handsome guys at the arcade yesterday. The group of them had a guy who looked like Eun-jae. And they said they would meet us, so I told them I'd bring you along. Ah, the street, the dating place, wasn't this where the story would unfold? She immediately followed her best friend, looking quite cute herself. The two girls arrived at the gaming area, where her friend said they would meet. Why Young, you're so bad at this. The voices of the boys rang out amidst the noise of the arcade machines. The legendary Mario game was displayed on the screen. Oh man, it's so hard. You have to eat that banana over there. That was Kang Woo-young, her friend explained. Jo-ah-han was curious about the character her friend was mentioning and asked, who's that? With her innocence, Jo-ah-han was introduced to the famous group of 4 boys at Sango. Don't you know? Her friend excitedly talked about the boys sitting in front of them playing games. You can see they're so much like the famous F4 group back in the day. And of course, the main character would be the most dominant member of this group. He would be the ideal type for teenage girls, and also the inspiration for the trashy novel that Choi Ran-ah herself had written. But it wasn't for this almost 40-year-old woman. Choi Ran-ah wrinkled her nose as she looked at the young boys with indifference. The group of teenagers was excitedly engrossed in their game. The main male character in the story, Kang Woo-young, was the leader of the group, struggling with the game. His cold demeanor made Jo-ah-han's friend marvel. With his dark hair, earrings, attractive appearance, and towering height, he was adored not only by Jo-ah-han's friend but also by many other girls. It was a favorite image of 16 when Choi Ran-ah conceived of this character. Choi Ran-ah wondered about the innocence of that day when she imagined this character. The blonde girl pulled out her cute Samsung flip phone and said, I think they're on the 2nd floor, let's go up there. Jo-ah-han followed along with the unfolding events, thinking to herself, is that all? I thought something would happen between me and the Sango group. Quickly, the blonde girl called Jo-ah-han. And Jo-ah-han reluctantly followed, thinking about the dull developments of the past few days. Could everything just continue like this, and did she really have nothing to do with Kang Woo-young? As she thought, a new development immediately occurred. Oops. The main female character's shoe slipped off the stair step. In a split second, Jo Ah-han wondered, what the hell is happening? This slow-motion fall was truly epic. But she couldn't fall, she thought, and continued to lose balance and fall. As she tumbled down the stairs, she thought about the handsome Prince Charming who would appear below and catch her. And she finally fell. In horror, she tried to keep her mouth shut to prevent a kiss with the male lead. She fell on top of him, their faces inches apart but not touching. She breathed a sigh of relief. Her perfect falling posture was thanks to her diligent plank exercises. Thank goodness, she was relieved to have avoided that kiss. It's not that she didn't like handsome guys, but she couldn't kiss a high school kid, even in a virtual world. That would be a horrifying development. I'm a responsible adult, she boasted to herself. But wait. She had changed the storyline. At this moment, as the young boy foolishly looked at the girl lying on top of him, time stood still. It was illogical, but convincing. Time stood still for everyone except Jo Ah-han. She didn't know how long had passed, but everything remained the same. Choi Ran-ah silently pleaded, please show me a way out of here. Finally, everything started moving again. Jo Ah-han fell down, her friend rushed to help her up. She said, are you okay? You just fell down, right? Just a few seconds? It had been so long, but it was only a few seconds for them? As she stood up and adjusted her clothes, Jo Ah-han saw Kang Woo-young's lingering gaze as the group walked away. Choi Ran-ah watched the main male character and his friends fade into the distance. Is everything just going to go on like this? Is this a punishment? She wondered. Once again, she sat pondering how to resolve that situation, not knowing what to do. Frustrated, she put her head in her hands, feeling helpless. Suddenly, she felt something in her pocket. What's this? In her frustration, she tore it open and muttered, annoyed, thinking it was some childish prank by the students, who put trash in my pocket. She seriously reviewed the chain of events. Firstly, this was her own online novel. Although it wasn't entirely like what she had written, it was simply a place where the templates and rules of the novel were taking place. It also resembled the popular theme of literary criticism. It was a critical theory comparing literary works with the reality of life. They said that a completed work is like a living thing in which its structure is closed, interdependent, and intricately organized. She sat down, propped her chin up with her hand, and became calmer. According to the rules of this world, I should have kissed Kang Woo-young as soon as I fell down the stairs. But I prevented that from happening. So every time I cut across the natural plot of the story, I'll end up in a forbidden zone. So the development of the story is the goal of this world, right? With a glimmer of hope, she asked herself, can I go home after achieving the goal? And how many more of these incidents do I have to go through? There must be a clue somewhere. And what happens if I break the rules, if I don't follow the storyline? Lost in thought, she looked down again and saw the piece of paper in her pocket, just as it was before. What's going on? Didn't we just throw it away? She tried tearing it again and throwing it into the trash. But it kept reappearing there. Frustration and disappointment overwhelmed Choi Ran-ah as she exclaimed, what is this? She decided to open it to see, but just as she attempted to, her friend came from behind and hugged Jo Ah-han tightly. The cheerful girl asked Jo Ah-han, how are you feeling now? Jo Ah-han replied casually, yeah, I'm fine. The friend asked, noticing Jo Ah-han staring at the blank piece of paper, what are you doing? Jo Ah-han, surprised, asked, blank? Can't you see the writing here? And the reply, accompanied by a cute giggle from the girl, was, what writing? Isn't it just a blank piece of paper? By the way, that friend I mentioned earlier, he and his friend will come to the city center today. Join me later, okay? Jo Ah-han slowly pondered and smiled, replying, yeah, let's go together. She had figured out a way to get back home. That was to obey the rules of the game. After school, they returned to the central area, the playground. The cute girl looked around for the friends she had arranged to meet, perhaps they were on the second floor of the building. Jo Ah-han still thought about the contents of the piece of paper, which only she could see. According to her guess, what Jo Ah-han needed to progress the story was to fulfill her task. The story repeated itself as before. The group of 4 handsome boys was there playing Mario in the corner. Kang Woo-young was playing, and he was not doing well. Indeed, he was here, satisfying the girl's prediction. She smiled ruefully at the boy in front of her and thought about her task with him. If Jo Ah-han completed the task well, things could change, and if not, she might have to give up some things. Choi Ran-ah thought deeply. Suddenly her friend exclaimed, "No way, it can't be like this." Choi Ran-ah asked in surprise, "What's going on?" But the answer was nothing special. It was just that the girl saw a few thugs in front of her. "Hey girl, are you gone to the tricky one?" "I'm Wonbin, the handsome." So, they were the guys the girl had met online, and gone to the tricky one was the girl's nickname. With a different appearance from the profile picture, the handsome Wonbin looked rather nauseatingly real. And he was trying to confirm their relationship. While the girl was sweating nervously because of this rogue, trying to deny that she was Gondu, whom he had arranged to meet. But it was useless, they continued to harass the girl. Meanwhile, Jo Ah-han seemed less concerned about these kids. She was more focused on her own thoughts, reasoning, "I wonder if they're still on the first floor, if they are, then." Meanwhile, her friend pushed Jo Ah-han away from the thugs, refusing their advances. Unfortunately, just as she turned away, she was pulled back, and the struggle became more intense. This made Jo Ah-han truly angry now. She yelled loudly, "Stop it. How dare you hold someone's hand without permission? Aren't you supposed to be men? Get lost. Haven't you left yet? Get lost." She raised her hand threateningly, shooing away the two thugs. With the fierce demeanor of an experienced boss scolding employees, Choi Ran-ah frightened the two of them into backing off. As they left, the blonde girl admired Jo Ah-han's strength, but she also feared that the thugs would come back for revenge. But Jo Ah-han said they wouldn't dare to come back. "Let's go to the second floor." "The second floor?" the blonde girl asked in surprise. After pushing the girl ahead, there was a moment of silence. Only Jo Ah-han remained on the staircase. She slowly calculated, thinking to herself, "There's only this way, I have to go home. And since this place isn't real, I'll be fine, I can do it." Standing at the top of the stairs, Jo Ah-han tried to reassure herself, "You can do it, Choi Ran-ah. Mom, Dad, I'm coming. Please forgive me." She hugged herself, letting herself fall freely. Tears streamed down her face, perhaps at this moment, she felt quite lonely. As predicted, she didn't fall to the ground but died. The handsome male lead finally appeared. He was leisurely walking up the stairs. According to the rules in this world, she continued to fall. In the wide-open eyes of the young man, the soft object fell from above and hit him. If she fell from a high place and hit him, their love story would begin, with the big brother Sango. The task written on the paper was, "Do you want me to take responsibility for you?" Taking responsibility for this unexpected kiss. The teenage big brother sat up in confusion, stuttering, "What are you doing?" Amidst the curiosity and amusement of the friends, they whispered, "Oh, wow, she's in trouble. Why Young hates physical contact a lot. He won't touch unless it's a girl he likes." On the other side, the blonde girl stammered in horror, "Oh no, why is it Kong Wai Young?" Meanwhile, the female lead remained silent, thinking about what she had just caused. She was too old to kiss a child. Jo Ah-han's face wrinkled with sadness. Surprisingly, the handsome guy waved his finger, full of disdain, motioning Jo Ah-han to come closer. She slowly, with curiosity, approached him, asking, "Here?" They stood facing each other, calmly looking into each other's eyes. And the confusion once again couldn't hide on Wei Young's face, as he helplessly said, "You." Then he raised his hand towards Jo Ah-han. In the blonde girl's horror, she imagined a violent outburst, and she exclaimed, "Oh my, he's going to kill Jo Ah-han." Wei Young left a menacing glance towards Jo Ah-han and said, "If there's a next time, you'll probably die." And he raised the trophy in his hand, Jo Ah-han's name tag, which he had just picked up from her clothes, as if nothing had disturbed them. The two girls stood at the foot of the stairs. One was still trembling and shocked by the consecutive events. Meeting a thug and then encountering the school boss. This made the frightened girl mutter, "What's happening? Did he just leave like that? I heard Wei Young's temper is no joke." Meanwhile, the female lead sat down on the stairs, exhausted and domineering. She calculated further, "All right, I've done what I needed to do." She looked at her cute friend, who was still dazedly murmuring, "Hey, the blonde girl standing next to Wei Young looks so cute." As predicted by Choi Ran-ah, the romantic storyline unfolded. The female lead's best friend also liked a member of the group of 4 boys. Exhausted, Choi Ran-ah tossed her hair to the side, regaining her composure. "Well, let's see what the future holds." The F4 group quickly left in a relaxed manner. Another class began. The bell signaling the start of class rang out. 2 girls were walking towards the back gate of the school. The blonde girl exclaimed in surprise, "Look at that, the back gate is so crowded. What's going on? Usually, there's no one here." According to Choi Ranos' logic, in reality, very few schools have back gates, but the main character's school always had one, and one of the main characters would surely use it. And sure enough, she was quite satisfied with her ability to predict. If I were serious, I could foresee the future. 4 young men were gathered at the back gate of the school. 1, 2, 3, 4, they all looked quite presentable. The excited blonde boy said, "Oh, Hee-young, there she is. Even the pouting girl, hello." And his words were heard by both girls. The annoyed little duck said, "Is he referring to me as the pouting girl?" The blonde boy said, "Yes, you're the pouting girl." Meanwhile, Jo Ah-han focused on her main male character. He frowned while thinking about him. Why is he here? Why are they staring at me so fiercely? Contrary to Jo Ah-han's suspicions, the outstanding young men were quite friendly. The gray-haired one with eyes as gentle as a dove greeted her. "Hello, Jo Ah-han." Hello," Jo Ah-han replied. Kang Hee-young stepped forward towards Jo Ah-han and asked, "Is your name Jo Ah-han?" With his advantageous height, Jo Ah-han found him quite tall and handsome. "Yes, that's right," she replied. "What a strange name," Hee-young remarked. Jo Ah-han thought to herself, what's so strange about it? He continued, "Follow me if you want to retrieve your name tag, or else, if you run away, you're dead for sure." Choi Ran-ah didn't care about the name tag, she didn't need to run away from this group of kids either. She just wanted to know about the storyline's developments to figure out the ending. He led her to that amusement center, and she wondered silently, why are we here? But she didn't ask him that question. Instead, the quick-witted little duck asked him, why are we here? As expected, the female supporting character received annoyance from the main male character. He spoke in a cold tone, "Don't talk too much." He turned back, glanced at Jo Ah-han, and warned, "If you know what's good for you, don't run away." And the blonde boy added, "The pouting girl should come along too." His words made the little duck feel insecure about her appearance. She covered her face, wondering if her lips were too thick. While pondering where the kids would take them, Jo Ah-han managed to comfort the girl, "That's your charm." But before her words could take effect, the little duck ran away, sobbing, "Hoo-hoo, I'm going home." "Where are you going?" Jo Ah-han called after her, but she was too fast. She sighed inwardly, so many things happening. But the little duck was quite unlucky, she bumped into the delinquents from the other day. They were excited to see her again and immediately blocked her path, saying, "Oh, look who's here, gone to the troublemaker." Terrified, the little duck stuttered, "Please, move out of the way." But they seemed not to listen much. The ugly one grabbed her hand, sneering, "I'm not in a good mood right now, but it'll be fine. Come with us." This scene caught Jo Ah-han's attention, and he grumbled, "What's going on now?" Jo Ah-han stepped forward, blocking the little duck from retreating, and shouted, "I told you not to touch her, you jerks." Seeming unfazed, they taunted, "Not interested, huh? We know you're just trying to impress us by getting angry. But, little girl, you won't be attractive if you're too aggressive." They laughed mockingly at their own pathetic faces. And Jo Ah-han was thinking that they seemed like fleeting side characters in stories, also known as NPCs, non-player characters controlled by computers in games. Their actions were repetitive or thoughtless, like high school girls blushing when they see handsome boys, or thugs getting dragged into gang fights. These two seemed quite similar, their mission was to tease the main character. And Jo Ah-han stood still, waiting. The two thugs continued their banter, "Come with us, and we'll be your hot oppa's fiery lovers." The little duck tried to call out, "My boyfriend is here." But the rascal just sneered, "You're lying, cutie, we know you don't have a boyfriend." "It's true," the little duck cried out desperately. And they enjoyed teasing her even more, "Is your boyfriend as good at fighting as our oppas? What's his name? Which school does he go to?" And finally, the main male character appeared. An arm draped over Jo Ah-han's shoulder from behind. In Jo Ah-han's wide-eyed surprise, she didn't expect his appearance to make him so flustered. Kang Hee-young's arm was wrapped around her, full of gentleness and a sense of security. He stood close to Jo Ah-han and coldly said, "I'm Kang Hee-young from Sango High School. She dumbly thought about the last line on the note. So, it was him. Kang Hee-young's presence frightened the two thugs, and they hurriedly fled with foolish excuses. Sorry, Hee-young, we don't know these girls. Jo Ah-han thought, that's how it should end. Hee-young calmly asked Jo Ah-han, were you running around looking for those guys? Are you stupid? But she was concerned about something else and slowly said, can we leave now? He reluctantly let go and gazed dumbfoundedly at the girl's cold and fearless demeanor. The young men of F4 group ran up, shouting, What? What happened? How could something fun like this happen without inviting us? But the three of them didn't seem very happy after experiencing this. Hee-young asked Jo Ah-han, hey, where do you live? My house? Jo Ah-han asked in surprise. He pressed further, simply saying, let's go. The ecstatic little yellow duck cheered, this way. That bossy boy is her savior. Just because of an online date, she ran into those thugs several times, scaring her to death. But the blonde boy, always smiling, quickly coached her, pulled her towards him, and said to Jo Ah-han and Kang Hee-young, goodbye. Have a lucky first date. We'll take care of this pouting girl. And the private time of the main couple began. Hee-young walked alongside Jo Ah-han for a long stretch, and they remained silent for a while. Then Jo Ah-han stopped, turning to ask Hee-young, how long do you intend to follow me? Hee-young replied, do you think I'm walking this path because of you? You're crazy. His face was slightly embarrassed, but he tried to appear as cold as possible. Why then? Jo Ah-han queried. Hee-young answered bluntly, because I'm worried those guys will follow you. Jo Ah-han thought to himself, isn't that still because of me? Indeed, he was still a child, so Jo Ah-han had to make it clearer for him. She said, if you have something to say, just say it now. We're almost at my house. Hee-young pursed his lips, momentarily silent due to the girl's difference from what he expected. She made him feel foolish, so he struggled to maintain composure. Listen, don't get it twisted. You were the one who stole my kiss yesterday. So, do you need anything? Jo Ah-han felt awkward and didn't know what to say. She was silently laughing at herself. I'm sorry, it was just an accident. That's what she truly wanted to say, but suddenly found it quite uncomfortable. What? Hee-young reiterated, do you want me to take responsibility for you? Innocence shone on Jo Ah-han's face. It had been a while since she received such gentle gestures, and she was quite satisfied with this turn of events in the story. Jo Ah-han pursed her lips, softly saying, yes, take responsibility. Hee-young turned away after escorting the princess safely home, but before leaving, he turned back to warn, tomorrow, meet me at the back gate of the school. If you're late, you're dead to me. Jo Ah-han felt truly joyful. She had successfully attracted the main male character and pushed the story in the intended direction. She silently said to herself, success. The paper with the title of the first chapter of the story, Do I Need to Take Responsibility?, instantly disappeared. I did it, she exclaimed joyfully. And she found herself floating in a dark space again. Choi Ran-ah opened her eyes, fully awake. She was groggy from the dream. On the hospital bed were several injection vent bags, and she was a patient. Beside the bed sat her younger brother, Yuri, keeping watch over her. Sister, are you awake? The boy exclaimed happily. Yuri? Have I come back? Am I really back? Choi Ran-ah reaffirmed the reality once again, to see if it was true. Weakly, she asked, where is this? The hospital, Yuri replied, we found you unconscious in the basement, so we brought you here. Choi Ran-ah sat up, ecstatically elated, shouting loudly, yeah. I'm back. Her cheerful demeanor startled her brother. It turned out she had been unconscious for 12 hours with no apparent cause found, as all her test results were normal. So, upon waking up, she was immediately discharged from the hospital. Choi Ran-ah returned to her apartment, feeling light and comfortable, as if a burden had been lifted. It was her own private space, and her age of 37 had returned, fulfilling her desires. Choi Ran-ah lay on her bed, enjoying its comfort, chatting happily with her little goldfish friends, and munching on snacks for dinner. Choi Ran-ah returned the next morning, with each step slower than usual. On her way to the company, she couldn't help but think about the dream she had while she was unconscious. It was a long and vivid dream, but it was just a fleeting moment. And here she was back to her normal life. A quiet and fleeting week passed by as usual. Choi Ran-ah's regular schedule continued uninterrupted. In her director's office, Choi Ran-ah was working when her assistant knocked and informed her of a visitor. A visitor? Choi Ran-ah asked, was there a prior appointment? The assistant replied, no, there wasn't. Shall I invite her into the meeting room? And at that moment, a strange visitor was waiting for her in the meeting room. It was the mother of Choi Ran-ah's boyfriend. With a stern and cautious expression, she folded her hands and began to speak. Co1 hasn't said anything. You understand my kind-hearted son, right? This is the first time my son has faced such a situation, so I came here to meet you, as I'm very upset. Choi Ran-ah sighed, placing her teacup on the table. Yes, please go ahead. The mother continued bluntly, what was the real reason for your sudden breakup? Co1 doesn't want to end this relationship. Aren't you giving it another chance? Choi Ran-ah clenched her hands together, silently questioning, does she really not know? Choi Ran-ah kept her discomfort to herself and slowly responded, it seems like you don't know, so I'll explain. I broke up with Co1 because he's an immature man who can't take care of himself. Instead of coming here himself, he asked you to deliver his message to me. You even decided on his menu and underwear color. He's dependent on others. Choi Ran-ah lowered her eyes disappointedly, not wanting to share more embarrassing details about her former boyfriend, a typical Asian man. Co1's mother was so angry and shocked by Choi Ran-ah's words that she opened her eyes wide and gasped. She said, are you saying, it's my fault? Choi Ran-ah calmly continued, furthermore, coming to see me without an appointment is inappropriate. This is my workplace, and you can't just enter as you please. At this point, Co1's mother lost control. She exclaimed, you said what? I've been polite to you, and now you're disrespecting me like this? You can't find someone who cares about you as much as my son does. I'm only thinking of your well-being. Choi Ran-ah stood up, slammed her hand on the table with a cold tone, I don't want something like this to happen again. Consider today my poor behavior. I have work to do, so please leave after finishing your tea. There's another meeting scheduled here. The door closed in the helpless situation of Co1's mother. She felt embarrassed to the point of going insane, rushing out of the room to find Choi Ran-ah. She screamed, hey, I haven't finished talking to you yet. Do you really think I like you? I've never liked you from the start, you heartless person. You grew up without love, didn't you? Didn't your parents divorce? Choi Ran-ah froze at the insults. Murmurs began to spread among the employees. Staying composed, Choi Ran-ah paused, reflecting on the situation. It was truly a terrible day. And so, the workday unfolded in such exhaustion. Choi Ran-ah returned home and lay down on her familiar bed. Worriedly, she thought, how can I face my employees tomorrow? What a dreadful day. And so, she drifted into a restless sleep. But even when she wasn't under that basement with that old computer, she was still engulfed in her long dream. That night, when she woke up, darkness surrounded her, and she was thrown into another space. A voice kept calling in her ear, Ahan, wake up. You have to go to school. Choi Ran-ah woke up again, this time as Jo Ah-han. Jo Ah-han hugged her head in horror, realizing she was in bed, being awakened by her mother. Her mother was preparing breakfast for the family, urging her daughter, if you don't get up now, you'll be late for school. This wasn't a dream. Choi Ran-ah acknowledged that, no dream could be so real. And if this wasn't a dream, then she had to go to school. At that moment, Jo Ah-han and the little duckling were walking in the schoolyard. The heroine was pondering a hypothesis, it seemed like there was a parallel world somewhere. Suddenly, the call of the teenagers interrupted her thoughts, hey, Hee-young's girlfriend, hello. The friendly blonde boy ran up and greeted the two girls. Jo Ah-han followed Hee-young and thought, he still hasn't gotten tired of me. He still picks me up after school every day and takes me home after outings. Maybe dates like this will repeat? One day, after leaving the amusement park, Hee-young said to Jo Ah-han, go home early today. I won't be able to take you home early. What's going on? She asked in surprise. Hee-young replied, oh, I just have a drinking appointment with some friends today. Jo Ah-han thought, oh, I see. The blonde friend ran up, draped his arm around Hee-young, and said cheerfully to Jo Ah-han, people will be mad if he doesn't go today. So he can't go with you today. Jo Ah-han shook her head, thinking, it's true. High school students also drink at the bars around here. This is a world where young people freely imitate the behaviors of adults without much prohibition or criticism. Hee-young turned back and instructed, "Call me after you get home." Jo Ah-han nodded, "Okay." Then Jo Ah-han bid farewell to the adorable duckling and went home alone. As she walked, Jo Ah-han searched her coat pockets but found no notes. Without any notes, how would she return to reality? Jo Ah-han thought as she slowly walked through the gate of her house, pulling the door handle and saying, "I'm home." Immediately, a piece of clothing was thrown over her head. Jo Ah-han angrily retorted, "Wanna die?" A teenage voice from inside the house exclaimed, "Oh no, the witch is back." He peeked out from the door with a suspiciously timid demeanor. Well, this was Jo Hae-nam, Jo Ah-han's little brother, who had just started high school. Jo Ah-han knew that despite his early training in judo, he was still just a big kid. And upon closer inspection, Jo Ah-han noticed that he seemed to be a model created from her impressions of someone, though she couldn't remember who. Jo Hae-nam chuckled, his eyes pleadingly mischievous, "Big sister, I have a favor to ask." And so, negotiations began immediately. The offering he brought for Jo Ah-han was a steaming bowl of ramen with egg and kimchi. Jo Ah-han boldly demanded, "Add a bit more kimchi." Jo Hae-nam reluctantly agreed, "Yes, big sister." Slurping a noodle satisfyingly, Jo Ah-han asked, "So, what do you want?" Excitedly, Jo Hae-nam said, "I'll be coming home late from hanging out, so can you quietly open the door to the rooftop for me? It's Dahai's birthday today." Jo Ah-han knew that Dahai was the girl her little brother had liked for a long time, the school's beauty queen. And of course, to that beautiful girl, her naive little brother was just a one-sided admirer. Jo Ah-han inquired, "You really like her, huh?" And without hesitation, Jo Hae-nam replied, "Of course, I'm sure I'll love and marry only Jong Dahai." Jo Ah-han continued, "I heard she's a bit difficult though?" But Jo Hae-nam denied it immediately, "Dahai is an angel, she's not difficult at all, just a little stubborn, but beautiful." Jo Ah-han shook her head, "Well, he's completely smitten." Indeed, beauty in the eyes of the infatuated is extraordinary. "I never thought I'd see a female character with such cute memes, this Jo Ah-han." And the negotiation was set. Jo Ah-han priced opening the rooftop door for her brother at 5 bowls of ramen. "If you give me 5 more portions of ramen, I'll reconsider." Excitedly, Jo Hae-nam said, "Then I'll add 2 more eggs." "Deal," Jo Ah-han declared confidently, "I'll open the door on the rooftop for you." "Yeah." The boy cheered, "Thanks, big sister." Then he disappeared behind the door for a few seconds. And then emerged, dressed rather dapperly. He posed happily and asked Jo Ah-han, "Big sister, how do I look?" Without even looking at him, Jo Ah-han replied indifferently, "Hideous." The boy deflated, "You truly are a witch, and that's why you don't have a boyfriend." Then Jo Hae-nam quickly climbed out and disappeared to go play. Jo Ah-han sat alone drinking tea, silently thinking, "Poor thing, he's just a freshman in high school." She thought about him, her lively little brother. In the common stories she had read, she had built his character with a familiar trope. He was always the popular younger brother at school, good at fighting, quite attractive, but the main character always bullied them, just like Jo Ah-han was experiencing now. And it was highly likely that the main character's younger brother would attend the same school as the male lead. Lost in her thoughts for quite some time, she had to stop when she heard the phone ringing. Beep beep beep. Who could it be, she wondered. The caller ID showed an unfamiliar number. "Hello," Jo Ah-han asked softly, "Who's this?" The familiar deep voice on the other end made her realize immediately, it was Kang Hee-young. "I'm at home," she replied. Seemingly annoyed, he said, "I told you to call me when you got home." Jo Ah-han sighed, "Oh, sorry, I forgot." In her mind, she just felt sleepy and thought, "Kang Hee-young, please hang up quickly." She suddenly widened her eyes upon hearing a girl's voice on the phone. Maybe they were having a party. Kang on the other end asked, "I have to go, are you at home?" "Yeah, I'm getting ready for bed," Jo Ah-han replied, and he bid her goodbye, "I'm hanging up now." After hanging up, she closed her eyes again. Well, after eating a bowl of ramen, her blood sugar seemed to rise, she thought. She felt sleepy. It seemed like she was brought to this world just to sleep. And she slept soundly until midnight, still in her school uniform. Finally, a rescue call from her little brother rang out in the silent space of the night. Beep 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 beep. How long had she been sleeping? She woke up and wondered. Hello, she answered slowly, picking up the phone. On the other end, the voice of another young man echoed, Sister. Jo-ah-han could hear the chaos in the phone. QQ, what's going on? You're making me annoyed. Give it to me, you idiot. Hey, I'm Jo Haenam's friend, Seon. Jo Haenam is completely drunk now, can you come pick him up? We're at Carpe Diem in the city center. Jo-ah-han furrowed her brows at the chaos, not knowing who was talking to her anymore. The call quickly ended, but the arguments continued in the phone. Hey. Grab him. Jo-ah-han sighed and understood. The next developments would be like this. Putting on her jacket, she climbed out through the attic and began her righteous act. On the way, Jo-ah-han ran there immediately. But this world wasn't small at all. Without the Kakao app, she would have a hard time finding Carpe Diem in the city center. And surprisingly, the unfortunate supporting characters crossed paths with Jo-ah-han. More accurately, Jo-ah-han bumped into that ugly thug. The characters appeared menacingly, and they recognized each other. She thought to herself in surprise, wait, isn't he the handsome Wobin? Today, he was accompanied by a few other guys, who seemed more ready for a fight, perhaps their combat skills had reached SS level. The thug was very annoyed, telling the others about Jo-ah-han, she's the one, she's Kang Hee-young's girlfriend. Jo-ah-han felt quite surprised, isn't this how the story was supposed to unfold? Before Jo-ah-han could think further, the leader asked, are you Hee-young's girlfriend? With the confidence in the main character's immortality, Jo-ah-han replied firmly, yes, that's right. As soon as she finished speaking, they rushed forward, shouting loudly, get her. Jo-ah-han was now quite frightened, are they really trying to catch me? Using some self-defense moves she had learned, Jo-ah-han kicked their legs and struck their necks before running away. She ran at full speed with them in hot pursuit. Jo-ah-han felt quite annoyed at being treated like this as the main character, but there was no other choice but to run at this moment. She wondered, why isn't Kang Hee-young here? Finally, she was cornered in a dead-end alley. Exhausted and panting heavily, both Jo-ah-han and the thugs were equally tired. Damn it, one of them exclaimed. Jo-ah-han shouted, did you make a mistake? Why are you chasing me? The fat leader yelled loudly, I'm so angry. Go to hell and ask your boyfriend. He shouted, get her. With no way to escape, Jo-ah-han helplessly closed her eyes, waiting for what would happen next. 1, 2, 3, and thunk. A guitar fell straight onto the head of the fat leader. He fell down and screamed in pain. Jo-ah-han was extremely surprised, her eyes wide open, looking at the teenager in front of her. He was gently smiling and mocking the gang of thugs, what are you guys doing? He was still sitting on the wall behind Jo-ah-han, looking relaxed. Jo-ah-han looked at him in amazement, this handsome face appearing in such a situation, according to her reasoning, he must be the secondary male lead. He appeared?